Greetings, Madam President. I'm Yash. I'm a student of biotechnology, and I am a co-founder of Green Coalition Youth Initiative. So, as we all know, COVID-19 has highlighted an imperative for global cooperation. As the COVID-19 has highlighted a cooperation for a global cooperation for handling the pandemic and other major issues of similar magnitude. So my question is, will we be able to build back better, especially without leaving anyone behind?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yash. Please.
You are raising a very important question. Indeed, the big crisis looming in the background is the climate crisis. And we all know it did not stop, it did not sleep while we were fighting the pandemic. The pandemic is also an enormous crisis with a lot of negative impact on our societies and our economies. We master the pandemic actually basically through innovation and research and development. I must say we have developed vaccines, effective and safe vaccines in record time. It usually takes 10 years and it took us 1 year. We struggled in scaling up the production of vaccines. So we had the vaccine, but scale up the production is something where I think we take along a lesson that we need more pharmaceutical capacities out there in case that we have to really scale up the production of, for example, life-saving vaccines. But we also learned that this pandemic originated, presumably, also from humankind, human beings' intrusion in wildlife habitat and the loss of biodiversity. Because viruses and also the species of coronaviruses are out there. They are out there in nature, in wildlife. But the jump from wildlife to the human beings only happens if we're getting too close, too deep into wildlife habitat. So it boils down or comes back to the big question we're working on together to protect and maintain wildlife habitat and the biodiversity. And therefore the answer to the pandemic is very close to the topic that we are working on together. Now, what are we doing besides fighting the pandemic with, of course, vaccines and vaccination strategies and the behavioral strategies that we have developed during the pandemic? We know that we need massive investment. And on the European side, we developed Global Gateway, 300 billion of investment abroad, outside the European Union, for the investment needs. But we link the investment to priorities. And for us, the first priority for the investment is the Green Deal. So if you want to invest massively abroad, all over the world, in specific projects, they have not only to do no harm, but to pay off for the Green Deal. For example, in infrastructure for green hydrogen or other renewable technologies. So by investing in infrastructure needs, increased energy, for example, that is necessary, we are very clear that it is of utmost importance that it pays off not only for example, digitalization or resilience, but also for the Green Deal in our investment. And therefore you link in the cure with the investment, you link the fight against climate change with the fight against the pandemic, because we understand in the wider context that both also are linked.
And as you speak about the Green Deal, here we have all of you for Youth for the Greener Future. So I think we have met the right point here, and the future will definitely bring you more closer to technologies, to ideas that will actually be the future of all of you. So over to the next question. You would like.
Good morning, Madam President, esteemed guests. I speak for all the youth representatives here. That is a great honor to be in your presence today. My name is Manal Iqbal. I am a student of Masters in Climate Science and Policy from TERI School of Advanced Studies. Being students of Climate Science and Policy, our studies and our research lies in the intersection of scientific as well as policy issues surrounding climate change. So my question for you, Madam President, is that do you think that the impacts of climate change need to be seen through a social lens? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising this question. There will not be a green transition if it is not a just transition. And this includes the social angle, the social lens, as you said, to see it through the social lens. Because we need to change for the better. The way we produce, the way we consume, the way we behave, we need to change for the better. We all know that. And if I look, for example, at the topic of renewable energy, use of renewable energy, we know that households that are vulnerable households with very small income, it will be very hard for them to invest, to have access to renewable energies, not to rely on the old, dirty fossil fuel energies, but to move forward to the modern technologies, the clean technologies, but this needs investment. This is impossible for vulnerable households. They have no leeway, no room to maneuver financially. So there you need to support financially. It's in our societal interest because of the protection of the climate, because these modern clean technologies are better, but also because we do not want to leave anybody behind. This subsidies or the support of the vulnerable households or small businesses, for example, is necessary. How are we doing this in the European Union? I give you an example. You are familiar, of course, with the emission trading system. So that we say those who pollute the air with CO2 have to pay a price on emission of CO2 because our nature cannot pay the price anymore. This is on one hand the price on emitting CO2. On the other hand, it nudges the companies to say, oh, this is expensive. If I emit CO2, I have to pay for it. Why don't I look for a cleaner technology and move towards that one? I avoid the payment for the emission trading system. Those who emit CO2 have to pay. This brings revenues. And you can use these revenues for two things. One is innovation for clean technologies, but the other one is subsidies for the vulnerable households, subsidies for the small businesses that they can adapt to the modern clean technologies. This is the way how it has to go. And therefore, thank you very much for your question, because as I said, there will not be a green transition if it's not a just transition and if we don't leave anybody behind.
Again, like what I really liked in your question was, in spite, or I would say along with being a student of science, you have a keen interest in social issues. And that is where the focus of interdisciplinary studies plays a role. And I'm really happy that all of you, even our interactions with you, brought out all the different aspects of sustainable development that students need to be concerned about, be it the social, be it the cultural, be it the economic, and be it the environment. And all of you are definitely going to be ecopreneurs, very sure, and remember, innovations are going to be the key. So over to the next question. Thank you.
Warm greetings to everyone present and Her Excellency, Madam President. It's an honor to be in your presence, an inspiration like you, and it's delighted to have you here in our country. Welcome. I am Anshul Gautam. I am a student currently pursuing Bachelor's in Technology in Biochemical Engineering. Like you mentioned, biomass, bioenergy, being in a country like India where agriculture is an integral part of our legacy, this field could really bring a lot of, there could be a long path, it could bring a lot of light on climate change. So I am studying that only currently. Now, my question to you is that, yes, as individuals, we all work towards climate change in one way or another. But as a whole youth, what can we do? What could be our contribution with respect to the adaptation and mitigation strategies with respect to climate change, of course? So what can the youth do with respect to this?
You can do a lot, and we need you. Absolutely, indeed, because you can do a lot. First of all, you raised your voice and you raise your voice. So Fridays for Future, but in any other also environmental activity, it's so important because it's your future. As I said, you have the age of my children. My youngest one is 22, my oldest one 34, so somewhere in between they are what age is concerned, and they are as worried and intrigued like you are. They see, of course, what happens with climate change. And we need you to raise your voice and to push us hard to move on faster. But we also, of course, need your young, brilliant minds to go into research and innovation and development. And when I listen to you and your background, I know that's exactly what you're doing. You know that we're just at the beginning of the changes, the positive changes that come along with all the innovation that is out there that we could tap on. And therefore, we really need you not only to be the advocates of fighting climate change, the advocates of our planet, of our nature, but also the ones who develop the solutions. So we do need youth more than ever before.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, I think we have time for one more question, but I'm sure all of you would be wanting to ask more. So one last question, please, from the group. Who would like to ask?
A very good morning to you, Madam President. So my name is Nivedita. I'm an interdisciplinary researcher at TERI, and my background is international studies, and I'm one of those people who believe that science is important, but so is the economic structures, political structures, and international order. So I know that EU policies are aimed at reducing the, environmental and harmful effects of plastic and waste, and to improve EU's resource efficiency. So my question is that how do we ensure, and what actions are EU taking to ensure that the developing world is also part of the process and they are not left behind, and that they can also play a role in improving and raising the awareness to tackle this plastic menace?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. It shows the broader context that whatever we do, we need a global coalition for it. We need to mobilize all the other forces apart from, let's say, India and the European Union. If I look at the European Union, as a developed country, we emit only, but this is in parentheses, 9% of the CO2 emissions. But we are completely aware that if we would lean back, the catastrophe that climate change brings along, if it's unleashed further, would hit us full scale. So we have understood that it is important that we lead with the European Green Deal, that we show that change is possible in a positive way, but also that we create global alliances. And the next COP27 is important for us. For example, we have different forms of alliances that help us to really not only bring the mindset forward, but also solutions. With South Africa, for example, we have a initiative. We, as the European Union, with other countries together, to support South Africa to phase out of coal and to go into the renewables. So you need the global support for developing countries but they have an enormous amount of resources. There's an abundance, for example, here, what sun is concerned. You know it. And I mean, this is the primary source for solar energy. So to invest in that here and to think about the smart ways to not only use the energy here in India, but also to export it, that's the task that we have to tackle together, to the benefit of India, but also, of course, our climate and others who need this energy. I come from a region where sun is not in abundance. So this is amazing to see what the potential here is. And you were speaking beforehand, you were speaking about the biomass topic. And you, Dear Excellency, also when on our way in here, you were speaking about the biomass topic. I was visiting Sweden a few weeks ago, and there I visited a project where they have district heating for Stockholm, the capital, with biomass. It's the undercut of their vast forest. It's just with the leftovers. They use it, they burn it, capture the CO2, make sure it is not emitted, but store it somewhere else in caverns under the surface. And with the biomass heating, they heat Stockholm in the district heating. And when they're done with their project, which is already up and running, Stockholm will be the first climate positive city in the world. So they extract more CO2 from the atmosphere than they use for producing with the biomass the heating for the district. Just as an example, because you were mentioning the biomass. So to learn from others and to develop technologies that connect others. For example, for us, the northern part of Africa has an enormous potential with wind and solar to be the sources to produce green hydrogen, to bring through pipelines that we used to have for gas, fossil fuel gas, but now in the future would like to use for green hydrogen, is a typical example to show that you need these global alliances. At the very end, if you allow, I would mention one sentence because I heard it over and over again, the gender topic and being the first woman in different areas. As I see many young women and men here in the room. Basically, the thoughts behind it is women are not better than men, they are different. And if we look at climate change, and we've just touched upon a few topics where there's a huge potential in risks and opportunities. If you have different groups to look at the risks and the opportunities, you see a wider spectrum. Because we all know by experience, we have a certain approach to the world. So as an individual, I have a certain view on the risks and the opportunities, but I don't see others. If you mix the leading teams, you have a much wider view on risks and potential and opportunities. My second point is, this is of course the reconciliation of family and career. And my husband and me, we have 7 children. My husband is a medical doctor. And what we've learned in our life is, if you share the positive benefit and the burden among the two of you, you have an enormous amount of strength that results from that. It is a positive experience for my husband to be much closer to the children and have a career. It's a positive experience for me to have a career and to be close to the children. But if we divide the work between us, so on more shoulders, the benefit is much, much higher. And children have a right to have a mother. They have a right to have a father. They need other children. Therefore, you need good childcare, you need good schools that leave the parents the opportunity to have their career and after school to have time with the children. And when I speak about parents, I speak about the father, who is as important as the mother. And therefore, you are a new generation that has a hell of a lot of tasks ahead of you. You are smart brains. I mean, brilliant minds. So there's a lot we want of you, the world is asking of you, but also a lot you can give and a lot you can develop and share. And if you keep in mind that working together, be it at home in the family or be it in your career, is scaling up the benefit for all of you, and that you need different views on risks and opportunities, I'm not worried about India's future. Thank you so much.
Ma'am. We have really learned a lot today, and I'm sure we would have marked a new chapter in our lives. And thank you for passing forward these messages of diversity, respect for diversity and inclusion. Yes, that is going to be again a way ahead for all of us. And for the benefit of all, 2022 marks as the EU year for the youth. So look forward to more interactions, more work, more power and more responsibility. With this, thank you so much, Madam President, for your remarks and for your viewpoint on various aspects put forward by the youth. I would also like to place on record a special thank you to His Excellency Ambassador of EU, Mr. Hugo Estuto. Thank you, sir, for providing us these opportunities of interaction. Special thank you to Dr. Vibha Dhawan, DG, who keeps encouraging us and powering us with more work. And with this, thank you to all our media friends who are here with us. We move forward to the next part of today's session. Ma'am, we have some outdoor activities and we will be showing you the way to that. Yes. And with that, a very, very sincere thank you for your presence today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the students will remain seated while the guests proceed.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the
Thank
best.
You so much.
Yes, all the best. Stay strong. As we are saying normally in French, we say bon courage. Hein? So we wish you a lot of strength.